Hey, everybody, Lieutenant Joe here for the Blue Heart webcast. We do it on audio. If you want to listen on audio, it's jpangaro.podbean.com. You can hear the audio versions of these programs or here on YouTube where you get to see Lieutenant Joe. What a treat that is for you. All right. Our sponsors, blue360media.com, my publisher. Go there for everything in law enforcement, including my books. RiotTint.com. They are an amazing company. They make window glazing for safety and security purposes. Awesome products. And MedicalEssentialDiagnostics.com. They're a New Jersey company right now. They got 6 offices. They do health screenings for all first responders at no cost to you. And you get to bring 2 18-year-old or older adults with you at no cost to you and get screened to make sure you're healthy, right? Do the right thing. Support our sponsors. Like and subscribe, ring the bell, all this stuff they tell you to say. All right. Tell your friends about this show. And so recently we did a show on the Big Four, some interview techniques and this and that. And along that line, I've gotten some emails and people are saying, okay, you talk about body language a lot. Are there some indicators that we can look at for body language that can help us understand when someone's being deceptive or truthful? And there are. Of course, there are. Body language, we have to remember, body language in the human species, 80% of the communication we do with other people in the world around us is body language driven, nonverbal communication, it's called. And it's very, very important when you're talking to someone to see how they're responding to you. So I'm going to go through some of these things. You might want to take some notes, watch the program again and write them down, and then start looking for them when you're talking with people. And the good thing about all of these interview techniques and understanding body language is you can practice this with every person that you come across, every conversation you have, right? One of the things I say is that every conversation you have, every interaction with another person is actually an interview. If you define an interview as your desire to know something, to understand something, you ask questions, the person answers questions. They ask questions, you answer questions. It's a give and take of information. In a criminal format, we have this interview to take us from, hey, this is something that happened, all the way up to here to a confession or an admission. But the reality is, it's an exchange of information with another person. So every interaction is an exchange of information. They're all an interview. All right, so body language. Let's start out with body language. There's several things that we look at when it comes to body language. The position a person takes when they're talking to you. Now, we know that as law enforcement officers, we are trained to do certain things. You're out in the street and you're talking to somebody, right? And you get a feeling from them that this person could be, they could run, they could fight, do something. What do? We're trained to blade ourselves, to prepare ourselves to, in case there's an interaction takes off here. All right. This is the concept of fight or flight, right? Now, concept of fight or flight is important because there's 2 kinds of fight or flight. There's physical. All right. There's physical where we're going to physically fight or we're going to run. And then there's psychological fight or flight where we're going to try and avoid answering bad questions, things we don't like. All right. So let's look at positioning of the body with fight or flight. So physical fight or flight, it comes to us from the time we were early human beings and the lion jumps on the trail and either we're going to fight the lion or we're going to run away from the lion. Well, the reality is there's a third part there that involved in this. So you have the fight or the flight. You also have freeze. People will freeze up when they're not sure what to do. This is why we practice things, right? We practice when you're in the academy. Maybe they practice you're stopping a car and a guy jumps out and comes running back at you. Right? What do? Well, if you've never thought about that, you've never considered your options, you're probably going to freeze. You're not going to know what to do. So we practice. That person gets out of the car and starts coming. Either you put the car in reverse and get out of there, put the car in drive and run them over if they got a weapon, or you do something else, but you make a move. We have a tendency to freeze when we've never thought about what to do. This is why we train our children. When the fire bell goes off, we train them get up and get out of the building. We train them for lockdowns, right? There's somebody violent in the school doing something bad. We teach them how to get up and move and lock down. Otherwise, we would freeze. So the saying I use all the time is you don't want the first time you have to do something be the first time you thought about it. That's why we need to practice these things. Practice your interview techniques. You get good at them. And then we sit and we look here and we say, okay, what are the body language techniques? Psychological fight or flight is the same thing, right? You're either going to engage with this person asking you questions. You're going to try and get away from those questions because you don't want to answer them because you have jeopardy, right? At which point you would display cognitive dissonance and other kind of factors. Or you're going to freeze up because you're not sure what to say. What do I say here? What do I say here? Right? So that's the couple of things you want to keep in mind. All right, so let's look at the position a person takes. Just like you blade yourself. Have we ever seen, you ever been on the side of the road and you're talking to somebody and they're looking past you, they're looking all around, maybe they're clenching their hands like this when they're standing there. What is that telling you? They're not saying to you, gee, officer, I'm thinking of punching you or running, but their body language is displaying that. They're looking around for an avenue of escape. They're clenching their hands. They're getting ready. What am I going to do, right? So the position a person takes with their body is very important. So if you're standing there, you want to make sure if you don't want this person to take off on you, if you don't want this person to fight with you, you keep a proper distance, you blade yourself, you watch what they're doing. Maybe as they're moving around, you have to step in their view. If they keep looking at that woods or they keep looking at that alleyway, they're figuring out, can they get past you and get going? Maybe you block that off so it changes their perception, right? So let's say you're interviewing somebody and the position people take. First thing we know is we don't start right out with asking them about the crime. That throws people off. What we want to do is engage in relaxed conversation as best as we can. So you might want to talk about sports. If they're wearing a shirt, oh, hey, you're a Mets fan? Whatever. You're a Yankees fan, you like a hockey team, the Bruins, you might want to talk about that. That starts to set the person at ease because then the cop is not talking to me about this burglary, talking to me about the Mets, and they will relax and they will answer your questions. And you will see a lot of body language that indicates that they are not dealing with jeopardy at that moment. What they are dealing with is just answering your questions. So you will see good body position. You'll see good eye contact. You'll hear good answers. You'll see the way they look at you. They might laugh. They'll be relaxed. Then when you transition into asking them about the crime you're investigating, now you will see body language indicators that there could be a problem. They could be under jeopardy, which means they might have done something, and they'll be deceitful and they'll show deception. And that's what we look for. So body position in a person. If you think about that, if you get asked to come to the police station to answer questions and you didn't do anything, you don't have jeopardy, and you agree to come in, yeah, I was in the 7-Eleven when it got robbed. I'll answer your questions, officer. Your body language is going to indicate an open body position, right? That means you're going to be sitting, your arms are going to be, you're not like this. Like, what? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? That is fight or flight psychological. You're protecting yourself. Even though you're not thinking you're doing that, you're shutting it off. Maybe your legs are crossed, you're sitting like this. That's showing nervousness and deception. So a person who's got nothing to fear from you for jeopardy, right? Not physical, we don't get physical with people, is that they'll be sitting with an open position. They might even be leaning forward. They'll be looking you in the eye. What's this all about, officer? What can I do to help you, officer? Right? Because they're interested, right? Shouldn't they be interested? They're in a police station. They should be interested in what's going on. They should be engaged with you. How can I help you? What can I tell you? What is it you want to know from me? They'll be open, as opposed to someone who is showing deception and maybe they're like this. They're not paying attention. It's like, oh, it's like not a big deal. What is it you want from me? They're not making eye contact. They're looking all around. They're think, oh, hey, what's the what? Why do you think I'm involved in a thing like this? And they don't make good eye contact. So positioning is very important. A lot of times when we're dealing with a jury, right? Juries will tell us how they feel about our testimony. Do they trust us? Are they accepting what we're saying? Because many juries you'll watch when you go in, they start out like this, especially when the cops testify, because they don't like cops because cops lie, cheat, hate people for all kind of reasons, plant evidence, everything they've been told by the media, right? So you'll see a lot of people start out like this when you're testifying. The key is, as you're testifying, if you do it well, and we'll do a whole video on that coming up. If you're doing it well, you'll start to see those arms will drop down. You'll start to see them leaning forward and listening to you. You might even see them smiling. And when you point at the defendant, what? Isn't that helpful? My watch is talking to me. I'm not looking for that. Be quiet over there, Elisa, whatever your name is. All right. You'll see them look at the defendant and they start following you because you can see, you can tell you're making inroads with them, right? So body language, they'll see all of that. Positioning, very important. All right. Next, I talked about eye contact. Eye contact, very important. Why? You've probably been told at some point in your life by somebody when you were young that if somebody doesn't look you in the eye, it means they're lying. And to an extent, that's true. Why is that? Well, the saying, the eyes are the window to the soul, is actually true. When we talk to other people, what do we look at? Do we look at their nose? Do we stare at their shoulder? No, you look people in the eye because that's the way you connect with them. When I have jeopardy and I'm afraid I'm going to get in trouble and I look you in the eye, it kind of feels like you'll be able to tell if I'm lying or not. So that's why you'll see people averting their eyes. You'll see them looking at you and then they look down, they look away, or they won't look at you at all when they answer because they're afraid to look you in the eyes. So if you have somebody who's making good eye contact, they have an open body language, you start to say, okay, let me ask this person a serious question. You'll see how they respond. They'll think about it for a second, and then they'll give you a full answer, a complete answer, not broken answers. All right. So in a previous video, we talked about cognitive dissonance. This means when you have jeopardy and you're concerned about your jeopardy, what you're going to get in trouble. Cognitive dissonance means you're going to start stumbling up your words. So listen, were you at the 7-Eleven today, Bob? Um, well, I don't usually drink coffee in the morning, Now, is that an answer to your question? Number one. Well, it is an answer. Physically, they answered your question, but that they answered the question that you asked. Did you go to the 7-Eleven today? No. And a lot of cops will take that as an answer. Well, he said he doesn't like to drink coffee in the morning, which means he didn't go to 7-Eleven. That's not an answer. What we have to do is focus on that and say, well, that's appreciative. Maybe you like tea in the morning, Bob, but I asked you, did you go to the 7-Eleven? Right? You see how that works? Cops often accept non-answers as answers because we're thinking so hard to get to the next question. Take it easy. Watch the body language. Does he look you in the eye? Does she look you in the eye when she answers? Is she got an open body position where it looks like she's paying attention to you? Or is she looking nervous? Is she shutting off? Is she looking away? Right? So we get those together. The breathing, the way a person breathes, very, very important. So here's how you can put it into your own perspective. Think about this. Um, do you ever play sports? If you played sports, say you played football, right? Right? Any kind of a sport where you have an active thing to do. It is normal for us as human beings to take a deep breath before we have to do something. Why? Physiologically, because that's our body saying, okay, we're about to use all these muscles and do something. We need to oxygenate the blood so we're ready to go. So you take a deep breath. Yeah, and you get in position, you hike the ball, and everybody does what they're going to do. That is a normal physiological response to human beings about to do something. Psychologically, it's the same thing. It's hooked up with fight or flight, right? So a lot of times you will see that when a person has no jeopardy, they'll be breathing normally, right? Their breathing will be fine. You'll be looking at them. They're making eye contact. They're open. They're talking about the Mets or they're talking about the Chicago Bulls or whatever they're talking about. And they're talking to you and they're looking relaxed and it's okay. When you transition to asking about the crime you're investigating, now you'll see maybe a different body position. Maybe they straighten up in the chair. They tighten up. They cross their fingers. They cross their hands. They start touching themselves. That's all body stress, right? And they have to get rid of that body stress. They don't know they're doing that. That's not something we think about. It's what happens naturally when you're under stress. When you have jeopardy, you have to remove that stress so you can look like you're calm because calm means not guilty, right? That's how most people see it. So breathing is very important. When you start to ask about the crime you're investigating, you might notice that their breathing goes from normal, relaxed. They're smiling when you're talking about the Mets. Oh, the Mets. And then you ask about this. Now you see faster breathing. You might see the vein on their neck start to bump, right? When you're asking these things, because now you've engaged their jeopardy and they're concerned about it and the physiological signs of body language are starting to come out. So there's two kinds of breaths you need to be aware of. The number one I call the reinforcing breath. This is the breath somebody takes before they do something physical or before they lie, right? So they'll listen to your question and then they're going to lie and they'll take a deep breath. All right. Well, officer, like I said, I forgot. I went to the 7-Eleven today. I don't always go there, but you're right. You're right. The video shows I'm there because I went in to get a cup of coffee. So they'll take a deep breath before they lie. Conversely, if you've interviewed them properly, as you get to the end of the interview and you're wearing them down psychologically, they can't withhold themselves anymore against the truth of the incident that you're investigating. You've got facts, you've got statements, and they're starting to realize they're not going out that door. They're going to get in trouble before they confess. You might see the body language of defeat. You might see the shoulders go down. You might see their head go down. Their voice comes down. You might see as you're asking a question. So, Bob, listen, I know you said you weren't at 7-Eleven. We have video of you at 7-Eleven. I've seen it. I know you came in and I saw you go into the back room. I think you did something stupid here today, Bob, and you need to be honest about it, right? Because either you're a bad guy or you're a guy who did something stupid, one or the other, but I know you did it, right? Now you might see they realize, oh my gosh, what kind of trouble am I going to get in here? Their jeopardy is activated. You'll see the body language indicates, oh no, what am I going to do? And you might see a defeat breath, is what I call it, where they do this. What am I supposed to say? I'm not a bad guy, man. What am I supposed to say? All of that is body language indicating that they're defeated, that they realize they have to tell or they're going to tell, right? And you've done the right thing to build the relationship. Go back and watch the interview programs where I talk about interview, read the book, The Interview, and you'll start to see all this and it comes together. So breathing is very important. All right. Stress moves. I mentioned that. What is a stress move? The reality of the human body and our brain, and they all work together, is that when we're under stress, like jeopardy, and we're answering questions that activates that jeopardy, like talking to a cop, we are concerned that we're going to get in trouble. We're going to have a problem. So you'll see cognitive dissonance. You'll see jumbled sentence. Well, I don't like, it's not like I go there every day. You'll see jumbled sentence. That's cognitive dissonance. That's deception. But when you see stress moves, if we're trying to look like we're not guilty, which most people are cognizant of that. I don't want to look guilty. And how does a not guilty person look? Well, they talk, they answer questions, this and that. But the body is filled with stress. When we're lying, there's stress on our big muscles of our body. And we have to relieve that. Again, people are not thinking this. I have to relieve my stress in my body. It's just it happens naturally. So you'll see lots of people who want to look innocent, their leg under the table. You can't see it, but my leg's going. What am I doing? I'm relieving that stress off my body, right? So if you see that, you have to say, hey, do I make you nervous? Why? Why do you ask that, officer? Because your leg's going 1,000 miles an hour. Oh, no, no, had a little cramp in my leg. It's no bit. Now, can that person move that leg again in that conversation? No, they can't because you called it out. So what can they do? All they can do is now that stress relief will go somewhere else. Now you'll see them cracking their back, which they weren't doing for the last 20 minutes. You'll see them cracking their knuckles, looking at their watch, flicking stuff off of them that's not there, maybe moving their neck around. It's to relieve that stress. So when we see stress moves, that's indications of deception. So we start to put all these things together, right? The next one we're going to look at how they answer the questions. So I said before that sometimes I've seen lots of officers, they will accept an answer that's not really an answer. Hey, listen, this money's missing out of the office. Did you take that money? I go to church every Sunday, officer. That's also known as a flag phrase, right? So you got a combo here, the questions that they answer, how they answer them. A flag phrase means they're trying to connect something they're telling you with something about them. So when I asked, did you take the money? The answer to that is either no, I did not take the money, or yes, I did take the money. That's the answer. Anything other than that is an obfuscation of the answer. It means they're trying to get away from that answer. They don't want to answer it, but they know they have to say something. So they will blurt something out by saying, well, I go to church every Sunday. Why would you ask me that? Is saying to you, I go to church, I'm a good person, therefore I would never steal, right? Because they don't want to answer the question. They give you something else to obfuscate your answer. So you have to listen to their answers. Let them talk. We often don't do that as cops. We jump in on top of people, which is part of answering questions. When you're asking a question of a person who's being truthful, They are going to listen to the whole question and then answer you. So, Bob, we had this incident at 7-Eleven, and somebody there that we spoke to said they know you. They used to work with you, and they saw you go into the 7-Eleven, and then they saw you come running out. Can you explain? Were you at 7-Eleven? Now, a truthful person will think about that and say, well, yeah, well, I went there. I stopped to get a coffee. I went in to get my coffee. While I was in there, I saw something going on in the back room. Didn't look good. I couldn't tell what it was, but some people were screaming. You know how things are these days. So I just got out of there. I ran out of there. They will listen to your question all the way through. Then they will give you a complete answer with no cognitive dissonance, and it all makes sense. A person who's got jeopardy and who's lying to you, their answer will probably sound a little different. Number one, they want to get past having to answer it, so they might cut you off. So, Bob, we had this incident at 7. Hey, dude, I wasn't even at 7-Eleven today. Bob, I didn't ask you that. Can I finish my question, please? So the idea is they will try and cut you off and get to the end, and the end is, I didn't do nothing. Let me out of here. Right? It's psychological on them. They want to cut the answer off and go to the end. So that's bad. They listen, they give a good answer, no cognitive dissonance. Their voice stays at a normal level. And somebody who's being deceptive, they want to cut you off and get to the end of the answer and get out of there. I didn't do it. Leave me alone. Right? That's the bottom line. One of the things people do look at also is the tone of voice. So keep this in mind. Say you were asked, well, listen, Bob, you're in that 7-Eleven. Somebody says they thought they saw you go in the back room. Me? I did not go in the back room. Absolutely not. I was making coffee, which was back in that area, was making a cup of coffee, but I never went in that back room. Bob, why would somebody tell us that you went in the back room? I don't care what somebody says. I did not. Is there video in there? Go watch the video because I did not go back there. So someone who's innocent and you keep pushing them into a position where, well, we think maybe you are not innocent, they have a tendency to get angry sometimes. Think about yourself. Imagine if you were called in on an internal affairs investigation because your partner did something and they're alluding to the fact that you did it too. Well, you might say, no, I don't know what Officer Jones did, but I didn't do that. They ask a second time, I told you I didn't do that. I don't care what Jones did. I did not. The third time they ask you, now you might get angry. So that's okay. We have to judge how they answer the question in combination with all of these other body language things. See, so body language, the way that that actually helps us as investigators, as officers, is that we combine the verbal answers, the body language with the words they're using. And that helps us to determine, are they being truthful or are they being deceitful? If they're truthful, we can move them along. If they're being deceitful, you have to answer more questions, right? Or ask more questions, they have to answer more questions, right? So that is some things to consider. The position of the body, eye contact, their breathing, how they're breathing, the two kinds of breathing, the stress moves that they make, the questions, how they answer them, how they ask them, and flag phrases, that kind of thing, all right? So listen to the answers. If it's not a real answer, call them out. Listen, I appreciate that you go to church. I go to church too, but you know what? I asked you, did you take the money? Focus in on it, and we have to do that by using active listening skills, right? It's okay to want to get on to the next question, but take your time with this person, ask the questions, and evaluate the body language, and it'll help you determine if they're being truthful or if they're being a liar. All right? So this is Lieutenant Joe. Be careful out there. Go get those confessions. Read the book, The Interview. It's going to help you a lot, and we will see you down the road.